Jinwoo walked into the massive council chamber with steady steps. His black shoes clicked against the smooth metal floor as he made his way to the human section. The chamber was enormous, with curved walls that stretched up so high he could barely see the ceiling. Thousands of alien beings filled the seats, making strange noises as they talked to each other. The air smelled weird, like chemicals and something rotten. Jinwoo had been coming to these meetings for 3 years now, but he still was not used to the smell. His assistant So-young followed behind him, carrying a heavy bag full of papers and electronic devices. She looked tired and stressed, just like Jinwoo felt. They sat down in the small section marked for Earth the Human. The section was tiny compared to the huge areas given to other species. Jinwoo looked around and saw the insect-like crics taking up a whole wall with their hundreds of representatives. The gas-breathing Vorthan had giant tanks and tubes everywhere. For their special air, the Altarians, with their purple skin, sat in fancy floating chairs. High Counselor Dex stood up from his golden throne at the center of the chamber. His scales caught the bright lights and made rainbow colors across his huge body. He was twice as tall as Jinwoo, and had 4 arms that ended in sharp claws. When he opened his mouth, Jinwoo could see rows of pointed teeth. Noise in the chamber slowly died down as all eyes turned to Dex. Jinwoo felt his heart beating faster. He knew what was coming. The council had been making bigger and bigger demands from Earth for months now. They wanted resources, technology, and people, always more and more. Dex raised one of his clawed hands and his voice boomed across the chamber. Without any microphone, his species could make their voices carry across vast distances. It was one of their natural abilities that made them good leaders. According to the other aliens, our planet Earth will provide us with 2 million tons of rare metals this cycle, Vex announced. His yellow eyes looked directly at Jinwoo. The metals will be delivered within 30 standard days. Jinwoo felt his stomach drop. 2 million tons was impossible. Earth simply did not have that much of the rare metals the council wanted. They had already given everything they could spare in the previous cycles. So-young made a small gasping sound next to him. She was writing down everything Vex said, but the High Counselor was not finished. He pointed one of his claws at the human section. Your species will also send us 100,000 of your best engineers and scientists. They will work in our colonies for 10 cycles without pay. This is for the good of the galaxy. The chamber filled with clicking sounds from the crics and hissing from the Vorthan. They were showing their approval. Jinwoo realized that all of this had been planned. The other species had already agreed to these demands before the meeting even started. So-young leaned over and whispered in Jinwoo's ear, "Sir, this is impossible. We cannot give them that many people. Our own colonies need those engineers and scientists." Jinwoo nodded slightly. He knew she was right. Earth had been giving and giving to the council for years now. They had shared their technology, their resources, and their knowledge. All they got in return were more demands and threats. X was still talking, his voice getting louder and more commanding. "And finally, your species will provide us with 1 million of your young. They will be trained from childhood to serve the greater galactic community. This is not a request. This is an order from the Galactic Council." The words hit Jinwoo like a punch to the stomach. They wanted Earth's children. Not just adults who could choose for themselves, but children who would be taken from their families and raised as servants. Jinwoo felt anger rising in his chest like fire around the chamber. The other species were making their approval sounds louder. Some were even standing up and cheering. The crics were clicking their mandibles so fast it sounded like rain on metal. The Vorthan were releasing gas clouds that meant they were very happy. So-young was shaking next to Jinwoo. Her hands were trembling as she tried to write down all the demands. "Sir, what do we do?" she whispered. "We cannot agree to this." Jinwoo looked around the chamber at all the alien faces. They were looking at the humans with expressions of superiority and contempt. To them, Earth was just another colony to be exploited. They did not see humans as equals. They saw them as resources to be used up for 3 years. Jinwoo had sat in this chamber listening to demands and trying to negotiate. He had been polite and diplomatic. He had followed all the rules and protocols. He had hoped that eventually the other species would see humans as partners instead of servants, but today was different. Today they had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. They wanted to take Earth's children away from their families. They wanted to turn human boys and girls into slipsticks. Was now looking directly at Jinwoo, waiting for his response. The entire chamber had gone quiet. All the clicking and hissing had stopped. Thousands of alien eyes were focused on the small human section. Jinwoo stood up slowly. His legs felt shaky, but his voice was steady when he spoke. No single word echoed through the silent chamber like thunder. No alien had ever refused a direct order from the High Counselor. The concept was so foreign that most species did not even have words for it in their language. Dex blinked his yellow eyes several times as if he had not heard correctly. "What did you say?" Jinwoo looked straight at the High Counselor without blinking. "I said no, we will not give you our metals. We will not send you our people, and we will definitely not give you our children." A strange sound started growing in the chamber. It was a mix of gasps, clicks, hisses, and other alien noises of shock and disbelief. So-young was staring at Jinwoo with wide eyes. She had never seen him stand up to the council like this. "You dare refuse the Galactic Council?" Dex roared, his voice so loud that the walls seemed to shake. His scales were changing color from rainbow to angry red. "Do you not understand what we could do to your pathetic little planet?" Jinwoo began gathering his papers and putting them in his bag. His hands were steady now and his heart had stopped racing. "I understand perfectly," he said. "You could destroy our planet, you could wipe out our species, but you know what? You need us more than we need youth." Chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens were jumping up from their seats and making loud angry noises. Some were pointing at Jinwoo with their various appendages. Others were turning to their neighbors and talking rapidly in their strange language. Jestix was so angry that his scales had turned completely black. "Where do you think you are going?" Hermanj helped Soyoung pack up her equipment. Then he slung his bag over his shoulder and looked one last time at the High Counselor. "We are leaving, and we are not coming back." He turned and started walking toward the exit. Soyoung followed close behind. The chamber was getting louder and more chaotic with every step they took. Some aliens were shouting threats while others seemed to be asking questions. "You cannot leave," Dex screamed behind them. "No species has ever left the Galactic Council." Paused at the huge doors that led out of the chamber. He turned around one final time and looked at all the shocked alien faces. "There is a first time for everything," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "As of right now, humanity officially withdraws from the Galactic Council." The heavy doors slid shut behind them with a deep booming sound that seemed to shake the entire building. Soyoung was breathing heavily and her face was pale. "Sir, what have we done?" Jinwoo smiled. "For the first time in months, we just did what we should have done years ago. We walked away from bullies who thought they could push us around us." They made their way through the corridors toward their ship. Jinwoo could hear the chaos continuing in the chamber. Behind them, the galaxy was about to learn a very important lesson about humanity. They were about to discover what happened when you pushed humans to Farand. Jinwoo had a feeling that the Galactic Council was going to regret their arrogance very, very soon. 3 days had passed since Jinwoo and Soyoung walked out of the council chamber. Minho was sitting in his office on Earth looking out the window at the blue sky. He had been the trade representative for the Galactic Council for 5 years, but now he was back home. The recall order had come immediately after the walkout. His communication device was going crazy with incoming messages from alien traders and business partners. They were all asking the same question: when would the humans come back to work? Minho deleted another 50 messages without reading them. He had more important things to worry about. On the council homeworld, panic was starting to spread like a disease. High Counselor Vex had called 3 emergency meetings in the past 2 days, but nothing was getting solved. The alien representatives were pointing fingers at each other and shouting in their various languages. Counselor Vex was an Altarian with purple skin and 6 arms. She was known for being calm and logical, but today she was anything but calm. She stood in front of the emergency assembly holding a stack of papers that seemed to be shaking in her hands. "The economic reports are catastrophic," she announced to the packed chamber. Her voice was higher than usual and she kept looking around nervously. "The human trade routes handled 40% of all commerce between star systems without their shipping networks. We are looking at complete economic collapse." The chamber filled with worried murmurs and strange alien sounds of distress. The Cricks were clicking their mandibles slowly, which meant they were thinking hard. The Vorthan were releasing small puffs of gas that smelled like fear. General Zorth was the military leader of the council forces. He was a massive creature that looked like a walking boulder with arms and legs. His species, the Granite Lords, were known for their strength and their ability to stay calm under pressure, but even he seemed worried as he stood up to address the assembly. "We have a bigger problem than trade routes," he said in his deep, rocky voice. "Human mercenaries and military advisors make up 60% of our peacekeeping forces. They are not just soldiers, they are the brains behind our military operations." The general activated a holographic display that showed troop movements across the galaxy. Red dots marked areas where human forces had been stationed. Blue dots showed where trouble was starting to brew. "In the past 3 days, we have lost contact with most of our human military personnel," he continued. "The ones we can still reach are demanding immediate transport back to Earth. They are abandoning their posts and taking their advanced weapons with them back on Earth." Minister Hyunjin was having the best week of her career. She sat in the government building reading reports from intelligence agents stationed throughout the galaxy. Every piece of news was better than the last. Captain Dong-Sik entered her office carrying a tablet full of new information. "Minister, the orbital defense stations are reporting constant communication attempts from council fleets. They want permission to enter our space for urgent negotiation." Shin laughed and shook her head. "Let them wait. We spent years begging them to treat us fairly. Now they can see how it feels to be ignored." Suk smiled and continued his report. "The economic damage is spreading faster than we expected. 3 major shipping companies have already declared bankruptcy because they cannot replace our logistics networks. The Altarian Stock Exchange dropped 30% yesterday. Meanwhile, in the frontier worlds, the situation was getting worse by the hour. The Zephyrian Collective had been enemies of the Council for centuries, but they had been kept in check by careful diplomacy and strong defenses. Both of those things depended heavily on human expertise. Commander Raktu of the Zephyrian attack fleet had been waiting for an opportunity like this for decades. His ships had been hiding in the outer rim for months, watching and waiting. Now, with the humans gone, the frontier defenses were weak and confused. The attack on the Kepler-7 colony came without warning. Zephyrian warships dropped out of hyperspace and immediately began bombardment. The Council defense fleet tried to respond, but without human tactical coordination, They were scattered and ineffective within 6 hours. Kepler-7 had fallen. The colony that had been home to 12 million beings was now under Zephyrian control. The defenders had either fled or been captured. The Council had lost an entire star system in less than a day. News of the defeat spread quickly through Council space. Other enemy factions that had been quiet for years began mobilizing their forces. Ancient territorial disputes that had been solved by human diplomats suddenly flared up again. G1 was the head of Earth's xenobiology department. She had worked with alien scientists for 10 years, helping them understand diseases and develop medical treatments. Now her communication system was flooded with desperate messages from across the galaxy. The worst crisis was happening in the Andromedian system. A plague had broken out. On the main colony world, the local doctors had tried everything they knew, but the disease kept spreading. Council medical teams had been sent to help, but they were making no progress. Dark Healthbro was the chief medical officer for the Council. He was a brilliant scientist from the cerebral species, known for their large brains and logical thinking, but even he was struggling with the plague outbreak. We need human biotechnology expertise, he transmitted to G1. The plague is unlike anything we have seen before. Our standard treatments are not working. We estimate that without help, the entire population of Andromedian Prime will be dead within 2 weeks. G1 read the message and felt a mix of sadness and satisfaction. She had offered to help with similar problems many times in the past, but the Council had always treated human medicine as primitive and inferior. On the Council homeworld, the financial crisis was getting worse by the hour. 3 major banks had already collapsed, and the Council currency was losing value so fast that some traders had stopped accepting it completely. Economic advisor Quintal was a number-crunching genius from the calculator species. His people could do complex mathematics in their heads that would take computers several minutes to solve, but even he could not find a solution to the current crisis. The problem is systemic, he explained to the Emergency Financial Committee. Human companies did not just provide services, they were the backbone of our entire economic structure. Their shipping networks, their manufacturing processes, their financial systems, everything was interconnected. He activated a holographic chart that showed the galactic economy like a giant web. Bright lines connected different sectors and worlds. Most of the lines were colored red, indicating systems that were failing. When the humans withdrew, they did not just take their ships and people, he continued. They took the knowledge and expertise that held everything together. It is like removing the foundation of a building. The whole structure is collapsing. The crisis was not limited to economics and military affairs. Scientific research across the galaxy was grinding to a halt. Human researchers had been involved in almost every major discovery of the past century. Their advanced computers, their innovative thinking, their willingness to try new approaches had accelerated progress in every field. Professor Vonek was the director of the Galactic Science Institute. He had always been somewhat dismissive of human intelligence, considering their brains smaller than most species, but now he was beginning to understand that brain size was not everything. The humans had a unique way of thinking. He admitted to his assistant they could see connections that we missed. They could solve problems that seemed impossible. They brought creativity to our logical approaches. The assistant, a young cerebral named Tixmore, nodded nervously. Professor, what do we do now? All our major research projects depended on human participation. The terraforming program, the deep space exploration, the energy research, everything has stopped. Vonek looked out the window at the stars. He had spent his entire career studying the universe, but now he felt like he was seeing it clearly for the first time. The humans had not just been participants in galactic civilization. They had been the driving force behind its growth and development. Back on Earth, President Unisio was preparing to address the United Earth government. The assembly hall was packed with representatives from every human colony and orbital station. Everyone wanted to know what would happen next. The reports are coming in from every sector of the galaxy, she began. Her voice was calm, but there was a hint of satisfaction in her tone. The Galactic Council is experiencing what our economists are calling a cascade failure. She activated a display showing the current state of Council space. Red zones marked areas of conflict, yellow zones showed economic instability, and green zones indicated regions that were still stable. There was very little green on the map. They treated us like servants while depending on us for everything. President Unisio continued, now they are learning what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you. The galaxy is about to discover just how important humanity really is. In the audience, Minister Hyunjin smiled. The plan was working perfectly. Humanity. We had walked away from the table and the entire galaxy was falling apart. The Council would have to come crawling back, and when they did, it would be on human terms. The panic was spreading and there was no sign that it would stop anytime soon. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson about the true value of human cooperation and ingenuity. 2 weeks had passed since humanity walked away from the Council and the galaxy was burning. Engineer Tejo stood on the observation deck of Earth's moonbase watching the stars through the massive windows. He had reports coming in from every corner of known space, and all of them told the same story: complete chaos. His communication console was lighting up like a holiday display. Every few minutes another system would fail somewhere in Council space. Another colony would go dark, another fleet would send out distress signals that nobody could answer properly. The Zephyrian Collective had not stopped after taking Kepler-7. Their war fleets were moving through Council territory like hungry wolves attacking every weakly defended world they could find. Without human military advisors, the Council forces were being outmaneuvered and destroyed in battle. After battle, Admiral Korth of the Council Defense Force was supposed to be a brilliant military strategist. His species, the war minds, were bred for combat and tactical thinking, but even he was helpless against enemies who had been planning these attacks for years. "We lost 12 star systems in the past week," he reported during an emergency military briefing. His usually confident voice was shaken with stress. "The Zephyrians are using tactics we have never seen before. They seem to know exactly where our weak points are." What Admiral Korth did not understand was that human military advisors had been the ones creating the defensive strategies for decades. They had studied every possible enemy and planned for every type of attack. Now that knowledge was gone and the Council forces were fighting blind. Darjuan was sitting in her laboratory on Earth reading medical reports from across the galaxy. The plague in the Andromedian system had spread to 6 more worlds and was killing millions of people every day. The Council medical teams were completely overwhelmed. The disease was something that human scientists had seen before during the early days of space exploration, but the Council doctors had never dealt with anything like it. Their medical knowledge was advanced in some ways, but they lacked the creative problem solving that humans brought to medicine. "Please, we need your help, Dr. Kelther." Transmitted from the quarantine zone, "The death count is now over 50 million and climbing. We will give you anything you want. Just please send medical teams." Juan stared at the message for a long time. She wanted to help the dying people, but she also knew that Earth had to stay strong. The Council had ignored human medical expertise for years, calling it primitive and worthless. Now they were begging for help. Financial analyst Sung Min was working late in his office tracking the economic collapse that was spreading through Council space. The numbers were incredible and terrifying. 3 more major banks had failed and entire planetary economies were shutting down. The problem was not just that human companies had stopped working. The real issue was that human innovation and efficiency had been holding together an economic system that was fundamentally broken. Without that support, the whole structure was collapsing like a house of cards. Velsha was one of the wealthiest beings in the galaxy, or at least he had been before the humans left. Now he was watching his fortune disappear as stock markets crashed and trade routes shut down. His species, the profit seekers, lived for making money, but even they could not survive this crisis. Human logistics companies had handled the complicated task of moving goods between different types of worlds. Some planets had heavy gravity, others had toxic atmospheres, still others were completely underwater. The humans had figured out how to make it all work efficiently and cheaply now. Without human expertise, cargo ships were getting lost, crashing into planets, or simply sitting in space. Because their crews did not know how to navigate between different types of worlds, the galactic supply chain was broken and nobody knew how to fix. IT President Unisio was reading intelligence reports in her office. Deep underground in the Seoul government complex, the news was both better and worse than she had expected. Better because the Council was collapsing faster than anyone had predicted. Worse because innocent people throughout the galaxy were suffering. The Outer Rim territories were in complete chaos without human exploration teams, and their advanced technology. New worlds were not being discovered, and existing colonies were struggling with equipment failures that nobody else knew how to repair. Colony Administrator Thulgen was running the mining operation on Titan 4, a world rich in rare metals that the Council desperately needed, but the human-designed mining equipment was breaking down and his engineering teams had no idea how to fix it. The machines were incredibly complex, using technology that was decades ahead of what most Council species could understand. The humans had not just built the equipment, they had designed it to be efficient, safe, and environmentally friendly. Now it was becoming a collection of expensive junk. "We are losing production capacity every day," Thulgen reported to the Council of Economic Committee, "without the mining operations on worlds like Titan. For we will not have the raw materials needed to maintain our infrastructure." The domino effect was spreading everywhere. Human-designed power plants were shutting down because nobody knew how to maintain them. Human-built transportation networks were failing because the maintenance schedules were too complex for other species to follow. Human-created communication systems were going offline because the repair procedures required specialized knowledge. On the Council homeworld, High Counselor Vex was pacing back and forth in his private chambers. His rainbow scales had turned a dull gray color, which was the sign of extreme stress among his species. He had not slept properly in days, and his advisors were afraid he might be having a nervous breakdown. The emergency meetings were getting more desperate and chaotic. Everyday species that had been allies for centuries were starting to blame each other for the crisis. Old grudges and territorial disputes were flaring up as the Council authority weakened. Counselor Vex burst into Vex's chambers without being announced, which was completely against protocol. Her 6 arms were waving frantically and her purple skin had dark spots that indicated panic. "Sir, we have a bigger problem," she gasped. "The hegemony fleets have been spotted moving toward the core systems. Our intelligence suggests they are planning a full-scale invasion." The hegemony was the Council's oldest and most dangerous enemy. They had been quiet for decades, held back by the threat of human military technology and the stability of Council defenses. But now, with the humans gone, and the Council forces in disarray, they saw an opportunity to strike. General Zorth entered the chamber behind Vex, his rocky face showing more emotion than anyone had ever seen from his species. "We estimate they will reach the inner systems within 10 days. Our current defenses cannot stop them." Vex collapsed into his throne chair, feeling the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders. Everything was falling apart, and he knew it was his fault. He had pushed the humans too far, and now everyone was paying the price back on Earth. Captain Wujin was monitoring the military situation from the orbital command center. She had been tracking hegemony fleet movements for weeks, and the news was not good for the Council. "They are moving faster than expected," she reported to Earth Command. "The Council forces are retreating from every engagement. They have no coordination, no effective strategy, and their equipment is failing." Admiral Park, the head of Earth Defense Forces, nodded grimly. "The hegemony has been planning this for years. They knew that eventually something would happen to weaken the Council. They just had to wait for the right moment." The intelligence reports were painting a clear picture. The hegemony had been secretly building their forces while the Council grew complacent. They had studied human military tactics and developed counters to them. But they had also assumed that humans would always be there to defend the Council. Now, with the humans gone, the path to conquest was wide open. The hegemony fleets were some of the most advanced in the galaxy, and they were commanded by beings who had been planning this invasion for decades. Sunwoo was monitoring all communication channels from his position in Earth intelligence. He was fluent in dozens of alien languages and could intercept most of the secret transmissions between Council worlds. "The panic is spreading to civilian populations," he reported during the daily briefing. "Entire planets are trying to evacuate, but they have nowhere to go. The refugee crisis is getting worse every day on worlds throughout Council space. Ordinary people were watching their governments collapse around them. The Krix hive colonies were losing their organization as their leaders panicked. The Vorthan gas cities were running out of the special atmosphere they needed to survive. The Altarian floating cities were falling out of the sky as their anti-grav systems failed. What made it worse was that most of these beings had never known anything but the stability of the Council. They had grown up in a galaxy where humans quietly solved problems and kept everything running smoothly. Now, they were seeing what the universe was really like without that protection. Engineer Teho received a priority transmission from the Council Science Institute. It was from Professor Volnek, who had always treated human intelligence with contempt. As he transmitted, "We need your help with everything. Our terraforming projects are failing. Our deep space missions are lost. Our energy research has stopped. We were wrong about human capabilities. We need you back." Toe looked at the message for a long time, then deleted it without responding. The Galactic Council was in complete chaos, like a ship sinking in a storm. "High Counselor Vex had called emergency sessions every day for the past month, but every meeting ended with more shouting and finger-pointing. The member species were blaming each other while their worlds burned around them. Ambassador Kaiho had volunteered to stay on the Council homeworld to watch the panic unfold. He sent daily reports back to Earth, and each one was more unbelievable than the last. The same beings who had treated humans like servants were now offering incredible deals just to get them back today. "They offered us complete territorial rights to the Centauri sector," he transmitted to Earth Command. "They are also promising full voting rights on all Council decisions and a permanent seat on the ruling Council." They are getting desperate, but the offers kept getting bigger and more ridiculous. Some Council members were suggesting that Earth should become the new capital of the galactic government. Others wanted to give humans control of entire star systems as payment for coming back. The problem was that nobody in the Council really understood what humans did or how they did it. They just knew that when humans were around, everything worked smoothly, and when humans were gone, everything fell apart. Counselor Vex was leading a committee to try and replace human services with their own people. The results were catastrophic beyond anyone's imagination. Altarian pilots who tried to fly human design trade routes caused 17 major cargo ship accidents in a single day. The ships were not just crashing, they were colliding with space stations, getting lost in asteroid fields, and even flying into stars. The human navigation systems were so advanced that other species could not understand how to use them properly. Engineering teams from the Krix tried to maintain human-built infrastructure on the mining worlds. The result was a cascade failure that left an entire star system without power for 6 days. Billions of beings were left in darkness while emergency teams tried to figure out what had gone wrong. The Krix were supposed to be excellent engineers, but human technology was built using principles that were completely foreign to them. Human machines were designed to be efficient, elegant, and self-repairing, while most alien technology was bulky, simple, and required constant maintenance. Dr. Yultek was the head of the Krix engineering corps, and he was having the worst month of his career. He stood in front of a massive human-built power generator that had shut down 3 days ago. His team of expert engineers had been working around the clock, but they could not even figure out how to turn it back on. The human documentation is incomprehensible, he reported to his superiors. They use mathematical concepts that we do not understand. Their safety protocols reference technologies that we have never seen before. It is like trying to read ancient magic spells. Admiral Wu Jin was monitoring the military situation from Earth Command and the news kept getting worse. The Council forces were being destroyed in battle after battle as enemy factions took advantage of the chaos for more Council worlds have fallen to rebel forces, she reported during the morning briefing. The Zephyrian Collective has taken control of an entire sector and they are moving toward the core systems. The Council military leaders were sending increasingly desperate messages to Earth. They were offering to pay triple the standard mercenary rates if human military advisors would return to help them fight. But Earth was not responding to any of their communications. General Zorth had tried everything he could think of. He had reorganized his forces, used different tactics, and even brought in military advisors from neutral species. Nothing worked. The Council armies were being outmaneuvered by enemies they had easily defeated when humans were helping them. We need human strategic planning, he admitted during a Council military meeting. Their way of thinking about warfare is completely different from ours. They see patterns and possibilities that we miss. What the general did not want to admit was that human military advisors had been doing most of the actual planning for years. Council officers had taken credit for victories that were really won by human intelligence and creativity. The breaking point came when long-range scouts reported massive hegemony fleets moving toward the Council core worlds. The hegemony had been the Council's greatest enemy for centuries, but they had been held back by superior Council technology and tactics. Now, with the humans gone and the Council forces in disarray, the hegemony saw their chance for revenge. Their invasion fleets were larger than anything seen in galactic history. Thousands of warships carrying millions of soldiers were heading straight for the heart of Council civilization. High Councilor Vex received the intelligence report while sitting in his emergency bunker deep underground on the Council homeworld. His scales had turned completely black, which was a sign of terror among his species. How long until they reach us? He asked General Zorth. General looked at his tactical display and his rocky face showed despair. 10 days, maybe less. Our outer defenses are collapsing faster than we expected. Vex stood up from his throne and began pacing around the bunker. His forearms were shaking and his breathing was rapid. What about evacuation? Can we move the government to a safer location? There is nowhere to run, Sir. Zorth replied. The hegemony fleets are attacking on multiple fronts. They have been planning this invasion for decades. They know all our defensive positions and all our escape routes on Earth. Dr. Sun Wu was intercepting communications between Council worlds, and the picture he was getting was terrifying. Even for someone who wanted to see the Council suffer, the scale of the destruction was almost unbelievable. Entire star systems are going dark, he reported to Earth intelligence. The refugee crisis has turned into a humanitarian disaster. Billions of beings are trying to flee, but there are not enough ships to evacuate them. Captain Hai-Jin was commanding one of Earth's deep space monitoring stations. She had been tracking the hegemony advance, and their military efficiency was impressive in a terrifying way. They are not just conquering worlds, she reported. They are systematically destroying Council infrastructure. They want to make sure the Council can never recover from this invasion. The hegemony had learned from previous wars that simply occupying territory was not enough. They were destroying power plants, communication networks, manufacturing facilities, and anything else that could be used to rebuild Council's strength back. On the Council homeworld, the government was falling apart. Councilor Vex had suffered what humans would call a nervous breakdown and was unable to perform her duties. Several other Council members had fled to their homeworlds, leaving their positions empty. The remaining Council members were sending increasingly desperate messages to Earth. The offers were now beyond generous. They were completely absurd. Full membership in a reformed Council, equal representation for all human colonies, exclusive trading rights to entire sectors of space. Minister Hai-Jin was reading these offers in her office on Earth, and we could barely believe what she was seeing. They are offering us everything, she told her staff. They want to make Earth a senior partner in a new galactic alliance. But the most shocking offer came from High Councilor Vex himself. He was willing to step down from his position and let a human take over as leader of the entire galactic government. We were wrong about your species, he transmitted directly to Earth. We treated you badly and now we are paying the price. Please help us. We will give you anything you want. President Unesio read Vex's message while sitting in her office in Seoul. She had been waiting for this moment for years. The Council was finally admitting that they needed humanity more than humanity needed them. President called an emergency meeting of Earth government leaders. Everyone needed to hear about the Council's latest offer and decide how to respond. The meeting room was packed with ministers, advisors, and military commanders. They are begging now. President Unesio announced to the assembled group, they are willing to restructure the entire galactic government just to get us back to Minister of Defense. Park raised his hand. What about the hegemony invasion? Do we really want to let them destroy the Council completely? It was a good question. The hegemony was not exactly friendly to humanity either. If they conquered the Council, they might turn their attention to Earth next. Humanity needed to think carefully about their next move. Kim stood up from his seat. I suggest we let them sweat a little longer. The longer we wait, the better deal we can negotiate for. Minister Lee disagreed. We cannot let billions of innocent beings die just to get a better negotiation position. We need to consider the humanitarian aspects of this situation. The debate continued for hours. Some wanted to wait until the Council was completely desperate. Others wanted to intervene before the galaxy was destroyed by war. Earth had the power to save the Council, but they also had the opportunity to reshape galactic civilization completely. As the meeting continued, reports kept coming in about the advancing hegemony fleets. Council worlds were falling one after another, and the core systems would be under attack within days. Finally, President Unesio called for quiet. "We will respond to the Council," she announced, "but it will be on our terms completely. We will not be junior partners anymore. We will not be servants or tributaries. We will be equals, or we will let the galaxy burn." The room fell silent as everyone realized what this meant. Humanity was about to return to galactic politics, but this time they would be setting the rules the Council had learned. 6 months had passed since Jinwoo walked out of the Council chamber, and now he was back in space, but everything was different this time. The meeting was not happening in the Grand Council chambers on their homeworld. Instead, it was taking place aboard the Earth battleship Victory, hanging in orbit above the Council capital. General Kang-soo sat at the head of the conference table wearing his crisp Earth Defense Force uniform. The same aliens who had once demanded tribute from humanity were now sitting across from him, looking nervous and defeated. High Counselor Vex was there, but his rainbow scales were dull and his forearms kept shaking. The conference room was simple and functional, nothing like the grand chambers where the Council used to hold their meetings. Human engineers had designed it to be efficient and practical. There were no golden thrones or floating chairs, just basic seats around a metal table. "Let's be completely clear about the new arrangement, General." Kyung-soo began, his voice calm but firm. "Humanity will return to active participation in galactic affairs, but as senior partners, not junior members. Every human colony gets complete autonomy. Every human citizen gets full rights. The terms that read were comprehensive and completely non-negotiable. Human companies would resume trade operations, but with exclusive rights to the most profitable routes. Human military advisors would return, but under human command structure. Human scientists would share their knowledge, but with proper credit and payment." Counselor Vex tried to object to some of the terms, but General Kang-soo cut her off immediately. "You are not in a position to negotiate," he said firmly. "Your government is bankrupt, your military is defeated, and your people are dying. You will accept our terms, or you will face the hegemony alone." Through the conference room windows they could see the lights of the Council capital city. Many buildings were dark because the power grid was still failing. Other buildings showed signs of damage from the riots that had broken out when the government could no longer maintain order. High Counselor Vex finally spoke up, his voice barely above a whisper. "We accept all terms," he said. We have no choice. We treated your species badly, and we are sorry. We just want the killing to stop." The hegemony invasion had been stopped just 3 days earlier when Earth Defense Forces arrived and destroyed the enemy fleets in a battle that lasted only 6 hours. Human military technology was so advanced that the hegemony never had a chance. Captain Hyjin had commanded the escort fleet that accompanied the escort homeworld. She watched from the bridge as the treaty signing ceremony continued. The same aliens who had once looked down on humans were now signing documents that made Earth the dominant power in the galaxy. They learned their lesson the hard way. She commented to a tactical officer, Commander Del Su. "The galaxy discovered what happens when you bite the hand that feeds youth." New treaty was unlike anything in galactic history. Instead of the Council being the supreme authority, it would now be a partnership with Earth having the final say on all major decisions. Human colonies would be completely independent, and human citizens would have more rights than any other species. Minister Hanjin was watching the ceremony from Earth through a live video feed. She had been waiting for this, the moment since the day humanity first joined the Council years ago. Finally, they were getting the respect and treatment they deserved. That the economic terms were particularly favorable to Earth. Human companies would get first choice on all major contracts. Human banks would handle galactic currency and trade. Human shipping networks would be rebuilt, but under Earth ownership and control. Ambassador Kaiho, who had stayed on the Council homeworld throughout the crisis, stood up to read the final section of the treaty. "This document represents a new beginning for galactic civilization," he announced. "No longer will any species be treated as servants or tributaries. All members of this new alliance will be partners." But everyone in the room knew that some partners were more equal than others. Earth had proven that the galaxy could not function without human expertise, innovation, and leadership. The other species could participate, but they would follow Earth's lead. Giwon was already making plans to return to the Council worlds to help with the medical crisis. The plague that had killed millions was finally under control thanks to human biotechnology, but there was still much work to be done. "We will help with the humanitarian crisis," she had told President Unisio, "but we will do it our way with our equipment and our procedures. The Council medical establishment will accept human leadership, or they will continue to fail." Engineer Taeho was preparing to oversee the reconstruction of the galactic infrastructure. Most of the human-built systems could be repaired, but it would take years of work. The Council would have to pay for everything and accept human management of all major projects. Financial analyst Sung Min was already working on plans for the new galactic economy. Human banks would control the currency. Human companies would dominate trade, and human innovations would drive economic growth. The Council species would benefit, but they would no longer be in charge. The treaty signing ceremony concluded. General Kyung-soo stood up and offered his hand to High Counselor Vex. "Welcome to the new galactic order," he said with a slight smile. "One where everyone gets a fair seat at the table." X shook the general's hand with one of his four clawed appendages. "Thank you for saving us," he said quietly. "We know we do not deserve your help after how we treated youth." General nodded, but his expression remained serious. "You are right, you do not deserve it, but humanity does not abandon people who are suffering even if they have wronged us in the past. That is what makes us different from you." Captain Dong-sik was monitoring communications from the orbital defense station. The news was spreading quickly through what remained of Council Space. Earth was back and they were in charge. The response from ordinary citizens was mixed relief that the crisis was over, but uncertainty about what human leadership would mean on Earth. President Unesio addressed the United Earth's government about the new treaty. "We have achieved something unprecedented in galactic history," she announced. "We have become the dominant species, not through conquest but through competence." The president explained that humanity had proven their value by walking away and letting the galaxy see what happened without them. It was a lesson that would never be forgotten by any species. "We showed them that we were not dependent on them," she continued. "They were dependent on us. They needed our trade networks, our military expertise, our scientific knowledge, our diplomatic skills, everything that made galactic civilization work." The treaty included provisions for rebuilding the damaged worlds, helping the refugees, and establishing new colonies. Human oversight would ensure that the reconstruction was done properly and efficiently. The galaxy would be rebuilt, but it would be built according to human standards. Minister of Defense Park outlined the new military arrangements. Human forces would be stationed throughout the galaxy to maintain peace and stability. All major military operations would be planned and commanded by Earth officers. Other species could contribute forces, but they would serve under human leadership. Foreign Minister Lee explained the diplomatic changes. Earth would have veto power over all major council decisions. Human ambassadors would have senior status at all negotiations. Earth colonies would be treated as sovereign territories with their own governments. Admiral Kim described the new trade arrangements. Human shipping companies would control all major trade routes. Human manufacturers would get priority on government contracts. Human banks would manage the galactic financial system. That galaxy was learning a new reality. Humanity was not just another species seeking a place at the table. They were the species that made the table work. When they left, everything collapsed. When they returned, they set the rules. Dr. Sunwoo continued, monitoring communications throughout the galaxy. The response from other species was generally positive. Most beings were just relieved that the crisis was over and normal life could resume. The Krix hive colonies were already requesting human advisors to help rebuild their damaged infrastructure. The Vorthan gas cities wanted human engineers to repair their atmospheric systems. The Altarian floating cities needed human technology to stay in the sky. Even former enemies were reaching out for help. The Zephyrian Collective had sent diplomatic messages suggesting they might be interested in joining the new alliance under Earth leadership. Back aboard the Victory, General Kyung-soo was meeting with his staff to plan the next phase of reconstruction. The galaxy would need years to recover from the crisis, but with human leadership the work would be done efficiently and fairly. "We have a chance to build something better than what existed before," he told his officers. "The old council system was corrupt and inefficient. We can create a true partnership where all species benefited." Captain Hijin looked out at the stars through the bridge windows. The galaxy looked the same as always, but everything had changed. Humanity had walked away from a table where they were treated as servants and had returned to a table where they were recognized as leaders. The lesson was clear for anyone who cared to learn it. Sometimes the most powerful move is not making demands or threats. Sometimes the most powerful move is simply walking away and letting others discover what they have lost. Humanity had played their hand perfectly, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again. The species that had been